Alumni Weekend is such a special opportunity for our community to gather. We get to celebrate everything UChicago has helped us to create in our lives, from fulfilling careers to lasting friendships, interests, and intellectual connections. It is also a moment to feel proud of being affiliated with an institution that continues to advance transformative research and train the next generation of leaders across established and emerging fields. My own connection to the university runs long. This year, I'm celebrating my own 35th reunion since graduating from the college. Any 35 reunions? Hello. I came to the college on a generous financial aid package. I didn't have many resources, but I had a lot of curiosity about the world, and I was thrilled to be in a community with other folks who did too. And this place changed my life. It taught me how to think, how to gather and analyze information, and how to strive to see the context around each question and problem. It helped me develop my mind in ways that my 17-year-old self could not have imagined when I was applying. That experience is one of the reasons I stay involved, to help make sure students everywhere, regardless of their background, can have access to the same transformative education and rigorous intellectual environment that shaped me. As a supporter of the university for decades now, I know how powerful this alumni community can be when we come together around our shared ethos and purpose. You are our greatest ambassadors for this irreplaceable institution. And looking around, I feel even more excited and hopeful about the future. Guiding us to this future with deep insight, sure-footedness, and care is University President Paul Alivisatos. And before I introduce Paul formally, I wanted to share with you all that he is also celebrating a reunion this year. It is his 45th since graduating from the college with a degree in chemistry. 45-year alums out there? It has been my great honor to get to know Paul over the past few years, and I have immense respect for his leadership and vision for the university. This place has always stood for bold ideas and courageous free inquiry. And Paul has led the way in defending and reinforcing those first principles and helping chart a course so that those ideas reach even farther and deeper. It is therefore my distinct pleasure to introduce Paul, who will share opening remarks. Paul Alivisatos is the 14th president of the University of Chicago and the John D. MacArthur Distinguished Service Professor in the Department of Chemistry. He was previously Executive Vice Chancellor and Provost of the University of California, Berkeley, where he held numerous positions, including serving as Director of Lawrence Berkeley National Laboratory. After receiving his bachelor's in chemistry from UChicago, Paul earned his PhD from Berkeley. And as a preeminent scientist and entrepreneur, his pioneering research in nanomaterials has led to key applications in biological imaging and renewable energy. For his work, he has been recognized with numerous awards, including the Linus Pauling Medal, the Wolf Prize in Chemistry, the Priestley Medal, and the National Medal of Science. Most recently, he was awarded the 2024 Kavli Prize in Nanoscience and the Enrico Fermi Presidential Award. Please join me in welcoming Paul Alivisatos.
Good afternoon. It's such a joy to be here with you today. Rika, thank you for your very kind introduction. And thank you, Rika, so much for your partnership. The announcement that we made about 6 weeks ago of 20 new faculty for mind and machine across the whole of the university was absolutely extraordinary, and I want to express my deep gratitude and gratitude of the whole university for that. Now, you did let the cat out of the bag that it's my 45th reunion. And besides reflecting on the fact that none of us class of 1981 people would ever probably be admitted today, which is humbling. But nonetheless, beyond that, it also puts into mind the degree to which what we are here about today is a true intergenerational project of enormous importance. When Rockefeller and Harper teamed up to found this university, and then worked first with faculty, then with the first students, who in turn became alumni that we are descended from, and they set in motion a virtuous cycle of engagement by civil society to create an institution dedicated to the furthering of human knowledge, and through that means to the betterment of individual human beings who are here struggling to know more, and also the betterment of our society over time. No one could ever legislate that. What we have done together over generations is create an amazing academic culture, a culture that is so relentless in its truth-seeking that it's renowned across the world. And so today, in our discussion, we're going to talk about what are the features of that culture, what are the features of our community that we all recognize as enduring and foundational, the things that we truly adhere to through all time. And what are the things that are now where we are trying to advance ourselves to a next stage, to be the next stage of that virtuous cycle, that intergenerational project, where we will bequeath to our successors in the years ahead a remarkable and present university that really has the features that we can all be proud of. Now, to bring that out, we're going to have a wonderful conversation, and I will be joined by Rebecca Jarvis, who is, of course, an alum of the college, 2003. And she is today an Emmy Award-winning journalist. She is the chief business, technology, and economics correspondent at ABC News. She is host and managing editor of the podcast No Limits with Rebecca Jarvis. I have seen some of those, and yet we are still going to have this conversation. And also, Real Biz with Rebecca Jarvis. Rebecca has many other engagements at the university. She's on the BFI Advisory, Becker Friedman Institute Advisory Council. She has, of course, been an amazing supporter of the university. She supported Metcalf internships and the Odyssey program. In 2019, Rebecca received the Early Career Achievement Alumni Award. In 2024, she became a trustee of the university. That's just 5 years later. She's an extraordinary talent, a deep thinker, and I'm looking forward to my discussion with her. Rebecca, come on out and join me so we can have this conversation. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Paul, for agreeing to have this conversation with me after watching some of my interviews. It's great.
Yeah.
In all honesty, every time I come back here, I feel so much gratitude for this very special place. And I don't know if you can relate to this, but for me, living in a world where we can consume so many empty calories and feel so hungry all the time, all of the conversations I have here, all the interactions I have here, the word I keep coming back to is nourished. It's a place of nourishment for me. Mm-hmm. And I thank you, Paul, for protecting that, for thinking about that, for growing that for generations to come and the people who are here right now. When we were thinking about this conversation and what we might encompass, and there's a lot to get to, so stay tuned. But when we were thinking about it, we were sort of thinking about a lot of different places, and living in the world that we live in right now, it's so noisy, it's so challenging. And I said to Paul, well, what do people ask you when they find out that you're the president of the University of Chicago? And he said, well, they usually ask, are you okay?
Followed by a sanity check. Are you of sane mind? Yeah, right.
So, I mean, taking away sort of the laughter from that, how do you think about that role in this moment in time? And why do you want this role, Paul?
It's actually, it's the most purposeful moment I've ever felt in my life. Just because this place, I think we talked about it last night in my reunion with class of '81. So I feel I was formed here. I came in as a college kid, and right at the beginning, human being and citizen, self-culture and society. I mean, it was just a cauldron of ideas and energy, and just receiving ways of thinking that I had never known could even exist. And beyond that, just very much this sense that this place was giving me the tools to have a life, to engage with knowledge, to improve. And that is very real. I feel it every day. If I meet students on the quads, I'll ask them, how's your core curriculum going if they're college students, or how are your classes going? And to a person, I think they feel very deeply how powerful that is for their lives. So, to my mind, that's a privilege to be involved in sustaining that, and also a privilege to have the chance to kind of push it a little bit and see if we can become better at it, because things are always changing and knowledge is changing, and we need to be willing to move in those directions too. And so for me, it's not a hard thing to say I want to be in this role. And the issues that are on my mind are not news clips on the evening news. They're, what's the university going to be like in 10 years? How do we make sure that we're following that path in the most thoughtful way that we can? That's what I find energizing about it.
I will say, if you are ever feeling cynical about what the future might look like, you need to talk to Paul, because every time he talks about the conversations that he has with students and also what he's building here, it is consistently a positive outlook. And that's a great thing.
It's an amazing place, and it just keeps getting better.
So, you talked about the future, what that future university, what that future a decade from now is going to look like. How do you see it? What is a university? What will it be a decade from now? What will this place be a decade from now?
So thank you. And, let me just start by something that just happened this week, okay? This week, the CEO of IBM, Arvind Krishna, came to Chicago and announced that IBM would be creating 750 entry-level jobs associated with AI and quantum here in the city of Chicago. Now, where did that come from? That came from the university deciding almost 20 years ago now that quantum was going to be an exciting, important, intellectually viable field that would change the opportunities for society. And in the years since then, we have worked so hard to create the intellectual environment here at the university, to sustain it, to build the Chicago Quantum Exchange that draws in national labs, universities, the first ever fund for startups in quantum here at Duality at the Polsky Center, and then to start systematically, for example, with IBM. We established a formal partnership 4 years ago. This is the fruit of that. This is bringing the health to our city, the economic health to our city, to sustain it over the long term. And that's what the university can do in a very special way. We can be the place where we imagine what the next ideas will be. And if we do it well, we will have groundbreaking ideas, phenomenal education, but we'll also make the city or the culture or the country better places with more prosperity than they've had before. And so when we're thinking about where we're going to be in 10 years, those are the things that are on my mind. And there's a series of those. We'll talk about them presumably, but they are in areas like medicine and health. They are in areas like what is happening with the vital need to make sure we have a human-centered approach to what's happening with artificial intelligence, and that kind of humanistic center is what guides us as we help our society to shape what looks like a generational, intergenerational kind of revolution. So those are the things that are on my mind all the time. How are we going to make those things happen? Medicine, health, AI, what's happening with the role of the human being in society? How do we shape institutions that create prosperity? Those are the ideas that we're really working on all the time.
What you're touching on, I hear sort of two different areas. There is the idea of our principles, what the institution stands for, and then also innovation and development. And there are moments, there are times where those can wrestle with one another. But when I look at the University of Chicago and its history, I see things like the Kelvin Report, which for years has been a sustaining mission. Can you just talk a little bit about the history of that and how it sustains your thinking and the institution today?
Absolutely. So I think hopefully folks here all know that in the late 60s, the university was grappling. It's a time of great social contestation, and the university was grappling with issues related to free expression and related to how we relate to the society at large. How do we deal with the issue of the university's position in society? Now, that's not a new topic. In 1900, Harper gave an incredible speech on that, which really laid everything out. But in the 60s, that was a vital question, and a group of faculty came together, and they produced the famous Kelvin Report, which very beautifully lays out the logic behind why it's vital for the individuals at the university, faculty, students, staff, to be able to speak their minds, and for the university to defend that at all costs. But also that the university itself should not be taking political positions, because if, for example, the president does that over and over again, and likely has some views of their own, over time that will act to constrain the range of opinions that are felt to be allowed on the campus. That was right. It was right when Harper said it, and it was extremely right when it came out in the Kelvin Report. And frankly, I think many of the challenges that some universities are experiencing are because they strayed from those kind of fundamental ideas which have been sustaining here. And I think one of the reasons we have a kind of stability as a university during a period when there's so much contestation about higher education is because we've stuck with something very fundamental about free expression, about the respect for engaging in dialogue, all of those things. We have this nearby here, half a block, the new Chicago Forum for Free Inquiry and Expression, and we see the culture alive there, where students are hosting events constantly, where they're contesting the hardest ideas that are out there today. And it's a period of intense contestation again. We have a place where, that's fostering that. So I do think it's deep, it's fundamental, it's widely, widely respected across the spectrum of political viewpoints, and it's widely respected nationally and globally, and it's something we will sustain.
Well, and you see a lot of academia now moving towards it.
They are, yeah.
As a template. So in that, with that as the foundation, artificial intelligence is on everybody's mind right now.
Yeah.
How do you see this institution embracing artificial intelligence?
I'm so excited about what's happening here. So let's dig in. Let's start with education. So last year, we worked with the faculty. There was a faculty group committee convened. That's what universities do. They convene faculty committees. So we got a faculty committee together, and they spent about 9 months asking the real question: what will education be like in this AI era? How are we going to teach? How is that going to really work? It's so disruptive. There's many issues going on. Are people thinking for themselves? Are they letting the AI do it? What's really happening? And ultimately, they did something that I think was just a very beautiful UChicago moment. They distilled it down to 2 very simple things. They said, as a faculty, our mission is to inculcate in students, and it doesn't matter if they're undergraduates or they're boothies or they're in law or they're in medicine. There's one thing we want students to take away. This is the university for how to think. We want our students to leave being able to think with machines, human-centered, but also to be very, very adept, no less adept than ever, at thinking without them. And in this era, also being able to think about them. All those things are our objectives. And they said on top of that, students have to leave here being ethical, skeptical, and very ambitious. And so, in a nutshell, that creates a philosophy for how the university should approach the topics of education. Just the other day, I encountered a little essay written by Benjamin Morgan, who is the chair of the English department, who was reflecting on recent teaching. And at first, he was just so concerned about his students using AI to write essays. And so he wanted to clamp down on it. And then he came across a different idea. He said, okay, what I'll do is I'll just allow my students to choose. At the beginning of the class, you say, I'm going to be without AI. And then you do your assignments in the conventional way. And if you want, you say, I'm with. And then they invented a new way of doing the assignments and how to do that classwork. And so they had with and without, same classroom, but they also had the about question, because the ones who were using it and the ones who weren't didn't obviously have the same point of view about this technology and whether they wanted to use it or not. They started talking to each other about it. That was advancing them. It's classic UChicago. That's the kind of thing that I see as we've grabbed a hold of the education topic, and we will not let it diminish our capacity to develop the finest minds in the world. We'll harness it, we'll confront it, and it will be exceptional. I also, just quickly on the AI front, 2 other things. I mentioned the amazing mind and machines gift. What we will see is that all the different parts of the university are engaging right now. I see Dean Schulten from the law school there in the audience. The law school is front and center integrating AI. They're right up there using AI in really deeply thoughtful, creative ways inside the law curriculum. Our lawyers will be really great at this in this era. So, we have that going. We'll have research across the university, and we're also really doing a lot of work in computing, mathematics, and statistics. There's beautiful mathematics that underlies the advent of AI. We will see those areas developing in the years ahead. We will see this topic evolve, and we're going to be just right there, really strong in helping to lead the way in ways in which these machines are going to evolve and our understanding of what human thought is.
Just a follow-up, which students did the best in that classroom?
I actually don't know. I should have asked that question. I actually don't know the answer to that. But, one thing I will say is that life is full of surprises. And if for some reason you don't take the right turn at one point. If you've developed a good Chicago mind, you can always recover.
That's right. That's right. I was thinking about reading The Tortoise and the Hare to my daughter. Maybe that's where we are. But in all seriousness, you talk about AI. There are so many exciting things going on here. We were talking earlier that not far from here, the very first surgery to restore a child's spinal cord, the very first ever, just happened a few steps from here.
Yep, that's right. I'm so excited about what's happening in health, medicine, and biology here right now. We're in a kind of moment of, I think, real resurgence there. The person you're referring to, Professor Mo Bidon, came recently from Mayo Clinic, joined our faculty here, performed that surgery here at the University of Chicago. It was a groundbreaking moment for neurosurgery. I see today the areas of biology, health, and medicine as so central to how this university is going to advance intellectual frontiers, but also how we're serving the south side of Chicago and the region around us. We are now opening very soon the largest comprehensive cancer care center in the Midwest. And it's going to impact lives all around the Chicago region, all around the world. But it's also going to be a place where, for example, I believe over time we're going to help prostate cancer, breast cancer screening to take place much more broadly across the south side. We're going to save lives. It's going to be one way in which we reach out. One more on the medicine front, if I could just mention.
Yes, you can clap for that.
You know, I told you the quantum story earlier. I wanted to share one other. So we're deep into the design phase, and soon we'll be breaking ground with the city colleges of Chicago for a project in Washington Park. And that project will establish a small campus of the city colleges. We are going to co-locate with that our pathology laboratories and the faculty associated with that. Those students will do internships with us. We've committed, the city colleges will be educating people for health service careers, and we've committed to hiring 1/3 of them into our hospital network. So again, that's the university finding the way to advance human knowledge at the same time as laying the scaffolding for the economic well-being of the city to be anchored with the actions that we're taking. And I think those are the examples of the virtuous cycle. That's what Harper and Rockefeller were talking about when they created this place. They could never have imagined what we would actually be doing, but they set the pattern, and we're honoring that.
There was a beautiful feature of you recently in the National Academy's Hero Project. If you haven't read it yet, I would highly recommend it because I think it really touches on your own curiosity and motivations. And the thing that really stood out to me was the idea of navigating the unknown. And I wonder how you think about that in your role as president of such an important institution.
Well, first of all, that was a very uncomfortable conversation for me. The photographer, I love photography. I'm an amateur photographer. So we had a good time because we could geek out about his camera gear. And
the guy's trying to take a picture of Paul, and Paul's like, tell me about your camera.
Actually, this guy was prepared. He knew I was a photographer, so he brought a camera he knew I would like, so I could just be distracted by it. But we had a lovely conversation. But he is a person, Michael, he's a person who is deeply curious about the world. So he really wanted to have a real in-depth discussion about what's really going on with quantum entanglement, okay? So we went off into the, Bohr-Einstein debates and entanglement and all this kind of stuff. And so he distracted me well enough he could get a couple of good photos. But look, we had a lovely time. And, I think to me, in answer to your question, I have a lot of curiosity about things that was cultivated here at this place. And I like to understand pretty much everything if I possibly can. So I think that what allows me to be in conversation with students and with faculty, no matter what they're studying or what they're working on. It allows me to really genuinely want to understand what are they thinking about. The best day for me is always one when someone shares with me an idea I had never understood before. And I can pretty much say every single day at the University of Chicago, that comes true.
Do you remember the last idea someone shared with you?
Here? Oh my golly.
I really put you on the spot there.
No, it's quite all right. There's so many, but let me just I'm going to go back to law. Forgive me, Adam, or feel happy. I don't know. We just had a great lecture. We just had an amazing lecture by Eric Posner. Every year we have, one lecture that's offered. The faculty choose a faculty member to honor and to ask them to speak about their scholarship. And he spoke about Judge AI. And he had this incredible construct where he gave cases that had already been decided by a judge, but that wasn't known to the humans who acted as judges. They gave them all the facts and let them decide, and then to multiple AIs that also judged. And there was a kind of comparison. Who does better, the human judges or the AIs? That, you could have some different viewpoints on that, but I think Eric's point of view came out actually the most faithful execution of what the law would dictate came from the AIs, not from the human beings. So that was fascinating. I don't think he was voting that we not have human beings be the judges, but I think he was trying to come to terms with what this amazing technology does. So that's an example of just a recent, really fun idea.
Yeah, I'm glad you shared that. So we've been talking a lot about things that are theoretical, but there's also the physical.
There is.
That is expanding here. And the Quads project is very exciting.
Thank you. Yes. This is a pretty beautiful room, no? Yeah. But probably you would agree with me, a little renewal for the Quads is not such a bad idea at this time. And so let me just share briefly why I'm so passionate about the Quads project and where we're going with it. So, when this university was first formed, the architecture, the physical being of the university expressed a deep vision about this place. There's an architectural coherence, and then it tells a story. And the story is that all the subjects are here together. Everybody's on the Quads. And they can just crisscross the Quads 1,000 different ways to come and talk to each other and be in a conversation. And it says all fields of knowledge reinforce each other. That's the message the Quads send. And when the university was first created, I think one of the reasons it became so electric was because everybody was together here, talking and engaging and trying to find truths by challenging each other. And in the years since, we've built up these beautiful buildings. Just last night at the reunion, somebody hadn't set foot on the campus for about 35 years and said, oh my gosh, this place has grown up. And so that was nice. But on the other hand, I think the Quads themselves, we've let them they need a lot of care. And so we're in the middle right now of launching a set of projects. We announced recently the first one will be the Ida Rubinstein project. But we're in the middle right now of evaluating an architectural kind of vision for how we can restore these buildings, but also make them the present and the future for where we can engage with each other across ideas for the whole of the university. And that's a very active conversation, and I think we will set in place a set of actions that will allow us to modernize the Quads, but also to honor the history of what's here. And I'm very excited about it. I think it's going to be really big because the best ideas in the future are going to come from people engaging with each other in these historic, beautiful buildings, which will then be essentially modernized and used in ways that we can't even imagine today. Very excited.
I mean, that point to me is really, I think about that point as so important because There are so many ways that the world can reinforce us not having that,
Yes.
and that work can reinforce us not having that. And it is a special thing that essentially forces people from all different, I mean, obviously that is the University of Chicago writ large, all different backgrounds, but the idea that people coming from all different practices, all different areas of study are still being reinforced to have interactions, to have conversations, to have debates. That is the heart of the institution, and it's kind of the heart of the core curriculum, if you think about it.
So how was the core for you?
I loved it. Human Being and Citizen.
You did Human Being and Citizen?
I did Human Being and Citizen, and was reading Plato and Odysseus and Socrates, and I have those books on my bookshelf today still.
Yeah.
And I go back to them every once in a while, and it's not surprising to me because I was here in the moment getting to enjoy it and enjoy those debates, but I have these moments of, like I've said, you can get cynical about the world, but then you look back at these texts and you think, well, some of these arguments that we're having are as old as time, and by having them and understanding them here at 18, 19 years old and being able to have a debate with people that was completely open-ended. I mean, I do think back to the debates in some of my classes, and especially in the core classes here. And I love that they were as messy as they were. I love that. I'm so grateful for that.
So you also, many people are concerned today. What's going to happen? I'm going to get an education, and then the economy is going to change completely, and who knows what's going to happen to me. I will say, I think a great mind will always be able to adapt. But you did that, right? I mean, you made a big pivot at some point, didn't you? I mean,
I did. I was sort of your typical studying economics and law, letters, and society here. And I was on the investment banking sales and trading path, which is what I did for 2 years here in Chicago. Full disclosure, I hated it. I did meet my husband here at the University of Chicago, but really got to know him in investment banking. He told me he was quitting. I told him I liked him. My mom said never to date anyone at work, so we didn't. But I was not happy in that job. And I really, really wanted to pursue journalism. And the fact that it wasn't the easiest path into journalism. I didn't send out an application in day one. I was hired and everything was perfect from there on out. But the grounding, the foundation of the University of Chicago, learning how to ask questions. I oftentimes would say and think to myself as I was a student here, I am not learning the answers to things here. I am learning how to question things. And knowing how to question things properly is a skill set that I will always apply in my life. I'm even having a flashback when I got my student ID. I was standing right over there at that staircase, and we all walked up the staircase, took a photo here, and walked off the staircase and got our student IDs. But it was, I will say, debate, inquiry, questioning things is what allowed me to take that background in finance and start pitching ideas to newsrooms here in Chicago, and ultimately get hired to do that work, and then took me farther and farther. And now I employ a lot of University of Chicago interns at ABC News, and they are always standouts, and they don't have to have a degree from here that is specific to journalism. They don't have to have any specific degree. Every single University of Chicago student that I've had as an intern with me at ABC News has always been a standout. And I love that.
The power of cultivating a great Chicago mind. They're adaptable, and they'll go and do really interesting things. So I really like that story.
Speaking of economics, Paul, the economics department also has some really exciting things and focuses that are evolving.
Yeah, I mean, I think this place, the University of Chicago, will always be tied to how we understand and think about the economic lens of thought. How does that way of thinking that's quantitative, that enables decision making and so on in the face of uncertainty, how does that really work? And obviously we have a storied group of economists. The ones who are just coming up now are amazing. At the same time, we have a phenomenal community of economists in Booth and also in public policy and law, and now also in many other disciplines. The most recent Nobel Prize here in economics was James Robinson, and as you probably all know, it was around the topic of how do we think about institutions in society that create the conditions for prosperity. How do institutions do that? When do they do that, and when do they fail? And, you know, to me, that's an eternal question. It's a deep question. Societies rise and fall based on whether they're able to create and sustain institutional structures that are able to deliver benefits to society. That's why I've been talking so much about what we're doing to help a quantum economy or the health economy that's all around us. Because if our institution doesn't do that, then we will create a kind of a disconnect with the society around us, and we won't have served our higher purpose. And so I love that the economists now have gone into those kinds of topics. And what I see in the years ahead is that we will see so many disciplines of the university bring that lens of thought and help us create a new set of principles and thinking around these topics of institutions and also how societies create good conditions for thriving in them. And that's the question for today. It's debated as intensely as ever, but it's also a question that has been there throughout history. And if we do things well here, we'll create more tools, more ways for thinking about that for the generations ahead. So I'm very excited about what's happening in economics right now.
We do have some questions from the audience. And the first one, we touched on AI, but I know that's an area of interest for you. It's certainly an area of interest for me as well. And so I want to ask this one, even though we sort of touched on it, but the question is, do you believe AI will fundamentally redefine the university model itself? And how will the University of Chicago adapt its approach to remain a world-class institution?
Well, I know it's changing journalism because you just told me you're vibe coding all the time now with Claude, so good on that.
Doesn't write my scripts though.
No. Okay, but let me come to this aspect of it. Okay, here's what I do think that these new tools are powerful ones for helping great minds think. And as a consequence, nearly every subject in the university has a chance to answer certain kinds of questions which have just been so difficult to approach in the past. So I believe we'll see many disciplines at the university be able to advance far greater than they have in years past. It's not a do-all, it's not an end-all, it's not the only way of thinking in the world, it never will be, but it's new and it's powerful, and in the age of, in the hands of somebody who knows how to think, it will accelerate their ability to tackle problems across the whole of the university. So I do think for us, engaging in that actively, with skepticism also, and with a demand for ethics and for social responsibility, all of those things. But I think if we engage deeply with that, the University for How to Think will be really great at thinking in the decades ahead. So it's important that we really jump in and do that. I also will say it's going to turn out, and we'll be saying more about this in the days ahead, it's also going to change the operations of the university so that, for example, faculty who want to submit a grant are going to be able to do it much faster. Students who want to engage with aspects of the university will be able to do that more efficiently, and so on. So it will both advance our operations, but I mean, the real headline topic is, will the university be fundamentally the same or not? The university will be better. But of course, it will retain its core values and its fundamental outlook as a place for advancing human beings who think.
Speaking of the core values, you're a scientist, a science major, and you count your work at Doc Films as a college student as formative.
Doc Films.
I heard some fun stories about that. I don't know if you want to get into that or not, Paul, but what does a strong arts and humanities division mean to you?
Okay, let's do the Doc anecdote, then we'll do the humanities division. Both equally important in my view. So, I mean, Doc Films really, I spent a lot of time at Doc Films when I was a student, and it was such an energizing kind of thing. And the story you're referring to is we ran it, it is a business. It was a business in my era. So, we had films for the hoi polloi on Friday and Saturday, and we made money. And then with those monies, we could do these programs which had, let's say, deep dives into various auteurs, directors, movements, styles of film, and so on, that we could afford. And, as I did relay to you, the truth was, at that time, we ended up developing, as a consequence, these tremendously dense networks with all the film distributors. And somehow or other, in that period, you couldn't just go and find a movie. I mean, they weren't available. So we acquired, through various means, we started with about 300, when I joined, there were about 300 of these films that were in the old Doc Films offices in Cobb Hall. And, when I was graduating, we had 350. And they were incredible. I mean, you could just go there and see, the Billy Wilder films, or you could go and see what Ernst Lubitsch had done and just understand the history of cinema and visual arts in ways that were spectacular. With regards to the humanities, look, this university is anchored from its humanistic base. And I see that area of the university as deeply foundational. I'm proud of the fact that this year, for example, we have 7 completed searches for new faculty in the humanities. It's great. It means that, those people will sustain us in the years ahead, as will the arts. There are issues right now, and we're grappling with them. So, for example, doctoral education. Doctoral education will always be foundational to this university. This is how new knowledge, we teach young people how to create new knowledge, humanistic, scientific, whatever. And that's core to who we are. But the truth is that aspects of doctoral education are under great challenge at the moment. So we've turned again to our faculty, and we have a group of faculty from across the university who are really pushing on the question, how do we think about the aims of doctoral education today, with all the challenges that are taking place on whether there are jobs there, on whether we're serving the students in the best way, on how we can cultivate them, how we can create a sustainable effort in that. And I believe that the outcome of that is going to be a model for the nation and the world for how doctoral education should work today. And that, I think, will allow us in turn to ensure that, for example, the doctoral programs in the humanities are anchored in great success for the lives of the students who are engaged in those things. So that's one of the challenges we're engaged in. And, those things are serious. We have to really do them thoughtfully so that we can support those students to take their doctoral studies and build a great life from them.
There have been some conversations around the budget and the challenges.
1 or 2.
Facing there. Where does that stand, Paul?
So we have a structural budget deficit. 2 years ago, we set the plan for trying to take it, to resolve it. I'm proud to say that working together, and everybody has pitched in on this at the university, not easily, but everyone has, and I'm proud to say that, at the end of this year, we'll be on schedule a little bit ahead of half of that structural budget deficit will have been eliminated in those 2 years. And I'm also pleased to say that in the out years, almost all of that will be handled through growth of new revenues, much less than through any kind of cuts and so on. So I think we've kind of tackled the hardest part of it, and we're on a path. But it's very important when we talk about all these, big ideas that we just discussed. It's vital also that we have financial stewardship of the university as something that we collectively work on, and that's a project we all have to undertake, because to create the intergenerational project, we have to bequeath something to the next generation that's fiscally secure. And we're on our way to that, and we will get there.
As an alumni yourself, what is one aspect of the student experience that you are determined to preserve and one you feel is in most need of modernization?
Oh, golly. One to preserve. I love the Art to Live With program. Did any students here ever do the Art to Live With program? No, I'm the only one. Okay. Well, a few of you. There's some hands out there. Good. So I'm just saying, just trying to convey my personal experience. At that time, they used to put all the artworks in IDA, and if you stayed up all night, you could walk in and leave with a beautiful piece of art to put in your apartment. Don't lose that. That's vintage Chicago stuff. But, look, for sure, I would say in the college, it's the core curriculum. In all of the schools and all of the divisions, it's really sustaining the how to think. That's what we're always there to do. And if you say, what's one thing that we need to re-examine? Well, I just did tell you the story of the doctoral education, and I think that's certainly one. But we also today have a lot more master's degree students. In fact, you'll probably be surprised to know we now have a 4+1 advanced scholars program here, where we say to college students, you can be admitted in your junior year or even in your sophomore year in some cases to a master's program that will allow you to become educated. But we also have to just be careful ourselves. That's another layer of education. Is it great? Are we doing it in the best way possible? Are all of those degrees leading to good lives for the students who are in them? How do we look at that? So we have to re-examine again doctoral and master's education while we hold on to what makes the undergraduate education here so special.
How about drawing Silicon Valley here? What kinds of things are you thinking about in terms of they're very focused on coastal schools? Of course, they are here at the University of Chicago. I remember the recruiting events. Silicon Valley wasn't quite in the place then that it was now, but how do you draw that in even more?
Yeah. Well, look, one thing that's present in our student community, in our faculty community, is an entrepreneurial mind. People want to get out there and see their ideas find a use in the world, and the Polsky Center has made enormous advances in that. But to be honest, breaking through the Bay Area ecosystem bubble can be a little bit difficult. Recently, Samir Mayakar, who heads the Polsky programs, terrific. He did something I really love because it shows how partnership works. He reached out to all of the top universities in the Midwest, 10 of them. And he said, look, why don't we do this? Let's go over there and we'll bring our entrepreneurs and we'll try to see if they can have a good conversation. So suddenly we had all these companies who were sitting here across the Midwest, young people creating their new ventures, and they weren't getting capitalized here enough. They went there, and in 3 days, all of them left with their startups funded and moving. So we learned from that, and we've established something called the Third Coast Foundry, and it's a cooperation of 10 Midwest institutions that are bringing some of the finest minds and greatest ideas and best innovations to that conversation. So we reached out, we closed the gap. I think you'll see the Third Coast Foundry become a powerhouse in the years ahead that will change the shape of how the Midwest engages with the level of capital that's out there that enables ideas to thrive.
Well, when you learn how to think and not what to think, you can be a great entrepreneur.
You can be, exactly.
Okay, I know we're out of time, but I still have to ask you one last question, Paul, because this is your 45th reunion. And I wonder, what would you tell your young self, your baby self, when you were graduating? What advice would you give that person about the world and just reflections on the University of Chicago?
Well, first of all, I'd tell them you have no clue what's in store for you in your life, So that's certainly true. Here, let me share this. the students that I meet today, and I think you just mentioned it, you said law, letters, and society and economics. Yeah, so all these students like you are double majoring and stuff like that. The one thing I remember very fondly from my era, and it was there present very much with my class of 1981 classmates last night, is we were all wanderers. Mostly, I mean, just kind of culturally, that was the nature of the time. And so we kind of all sampled bunch of different stuff. And, you know, what I would say to a student today is don't underestimate the ability to do the good that could come from just a little bit of not worrying so much about whether there's another certification that you get from the university. Just let your mind be in this environment, because you'll come across some ideas and you would never guess how those might change completely how you think. And that may change your entire life. So I hope that doesn't get lost, because there's such a rush to professionalize or to secure the, other things in life right away, when this place is so full of opportunity to just think in a completely different way, and then to take that with you on a journey that could go anywhere.
Hear, hear. Paul, thank you so much.
Thank you.